For the past 6 months, my 6-year-old son has been forging money on loose leaf paper with crayons and pens and then cutting it out. I don't know whether to encourage this or turn him into the IRS. Welcome to Rumble Book Club. I'm your host, Michael Hernandez, and this is the show where a normal guy like me can talk about cool books he's read, old and new, good and bad. So if you like the show, you like the content, you like the books that I talk about, or maybe you have a child getting into federal crimes too, you've come to the right place, my friend. You could subscribe right down below and follow us on all of our social media and share these videos with your friends. And also, if you hit that little bell, you'll win $1 million, and then I'll turn you into the IRS, because I don't know where that came from. All right, friends, today we're going to take a look at a really cool book that I finished reading during the Lenten season, and I'm glad I did because now I get to share it with you. Today we're going to take a look at No Turning Back by Calloway. In No Turning Back, Calloway tells his personal story about his rough time growing up and his even more tumultuous adolescent period of time where he fell completely away from any form of structure and order in his life, how his life flew completely off the rails despite the desperate attempts of his mother and his stepfather to bring him back to course, and eventually the events that brought him back, and not just to civilization, but brought him into something new, an entirely new chapter of faith in his life. The aesthetics are really cool. They really show different pockets, different windows of his life. You see the priest he is today. You see little snippets of his life growing up, and he touches up on each of these topics over the course of the book. So it is a very complex and alluring cover, so that covers the aesthetics there. Talking about the readability, he is very straightforward. So Calloway writes as if he was sitting down in a chair and just talking to you in a very casual conversation about his life, telling you a story. I've heard him talk in videos depicting his life, depicting the merits of the rosary, depicting Marian devotion, and the way he writes in his autobiography is very much the same way that he communicates verbally. So it is very seamless. It's easy on the eyes, easy on the ears, and in the way that it's printed and the way that he talks. So as far as the readability goes, perfect score, 10 out of 10. Now let's talk about the content. Calloway talks about his time growing up in a very tumultuous childhood with multiple father figures, some of them being mixed bags of good and bad characteristics, such as his grandfather and his uncles, the time he spent staying there, but also very negative influences where he had stepfathers who were really into drugs, really into drinking, were downright abusive or neglectful, and so this really destabilized his early childhood development. By the time his mother actually found a good, positive father figure for her to marry and for her son to actually be around, who was a naval officer, it was already too late. Bad habits had been set, and he was already beginning to keep secrets from his mother, rebel against his stepfather, and neglect his younger brother, who he did love but was too busy getting wrapped up in his own world. From time to the East Coast to moving over to the West Coast, his bad habits began to really take root even more so, and by the time his father was stationed to Japan, his life just absolutely flew off the rails. In his time in Japan, he not only got into milder drugs like marijuana, but also got into heavy drinking, cocaine, and other hardcore drugs, and was even beginning to try to sow gang affiliations with local gangs in Japan. In addition to this common self-destructive behavior, he actually started getting into even more illegal behaviors that were beginning to draw attention from the actual Japanese government and shed a negative light on the United States government and its military. He began getting into shoplifting, stealing entire armfuls of merchandise and storing it on base, and it got so bad that he actually got kicked out of the country. He got chased down, entrapped, arrested, and his family was sent back to the United States, essentially in exile, never to return to Japan ever again. Once he got back on United States soil, his life didn't get any better. He was someone who was always atheistic, but when he went to a rehab center to try to get over his drug problem, it had loosey-goosey Christian affiliation, but that watered-down version of Christianity and faith and the hypocritical counselors that were there really didn't solidify any form of faith in him, and it didn't do anything to help his sobriety because he was able to get illicit drugs into the campus. Once he was released from that rehab, his life didn't improve. He got even further into drugs. He became, what do they call it, deadhead, people that are really into the Grateful Dead, travel around, go see their shows, practice nothing but immoral behavior sexually, and also take illicit drugs and overdrink, and got into this really loose hippie culture and he drifted even further away from his faith, and his body and his mind and his soul began to literally rot away. The ground beneath him continued to shift, and his life began to rot away more and more, to the point where he was transfixed by a single book in his lowest points that was talking about Marian devotion in the area of Medjugorje. Reading it and hearing about the possibility of forgiveness, the possibility of redemption, the possibility of being loved unconditionally no matter how far you sink, really began to stir up this feeling of potential salvation within him, and he was just brimming and overflowing with questions, despite the fact that he was still very self-conscious in his atheism. He spoke to his mother. He got to a Catholic church as quickly as he could, talked to a priest. It was just overflowing with questions, and this began a new road into his life of faith. And over the course of this, he discusses his journey to try to finish out his high school education, get a college degree, and become qualified to become a priest. So he went from someone who was a self-destructive hippie atheist who denounced God and any form of structure, any form of authority in his life, to someone who was willing to give his heart, his mind, his soul, and submit completely to that the rule of Jesus Christ and to Marian devotion, and to even become a priest within the Catholic Church. So his story is truly transformative, and it's very interesting to see. So as far as the content goes, it gets, in my opinion, a perfect score, 10 out of 10. This book is true testament that no matter how far you sink, no matter how far gone you feel like you are, no matter how detached you are from the world around you, from everything that you felt comfort in, you are not alone, that there is a possibility of forgiveness, there's a possibility of redemption, there's a possibility to climb out of the situation you're in and to experience new life. I bought this book online. I actually purchased it after getting the book Champions of the Rosary, which is also by Donald Calloway, and I'm absolutely ecstatic that I found it because it is a fantastic book. You can also find it online at Amazon.com, and I highly recommend it. The book is No Turning Back by Donald Calloway. Go out and get yourself a copy. Thanks for watching, everybody. Go read something.
Sometimes I feel close to the edge again, like my fire's gone now, no cause but